To what and to whom are we bound? To what and to whom are we bound? My favorite part of putting on tefillin in the morning is when I wrap the leather strands around my fingers. I call it the fancy finger work. When we bind them in place, we say the words from Hosea, Ve'erastich li le'olam, b'tzedek uv'mishpat. I betroth myself to you forever in righteousness and justice. Ve'erastich li b'chesed u'v'rachamim. And I betroth myself to you with loving kindness and compassion. This is how we start our day, with intention to bind ourselves to performing acts of righteousness and justice, to be kind and compassionate. These words echo the sentiment of God's description of Avram's future generations before the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. The story that is also found in our Torah portion from today, Parshat Vayera. God speaks there about us, about future generations of Jews. And God says, "For I know that Avram will instruct his children and his descendants to keep the way of Adonai by doing what is just and right, la'asot tzedakah u'mishpat." This is our mission. This is what is in our kishkas. And so I want to ask you again, to whom and to what are you bound? Who do you feel responsible for? Who do you feel committed to? And in what way does this put a chiyuv, an obligation, on you? And what actions result from this sense of obligation? In our Torah reading this morning and the aliyah that we all received together, we read the binding of Isaac. But the reality is that Avraham is the one who finds himself in a bind. He has to choose between his two obligations. The God who has been leading him all these years, and his son Yitzchak, who is supposed to be his future, the destiny he dreamed of. This text is often used to demonstrate Avram's unwavering faith, the greatest test. The willingness, that's my son Sela, the willingness to give up his son out of devotion to his God. And with Sela coming up here, that idea, that test is unimaginable. Rabbis across the centuries have struggled with this story, unable to square this Abraham with the one who confronts God on behalf of the people of Sodom and Gomorrah, but is silent when given the opportunity to defend his own son. The truth is that as hard as this passage is, I actually really love it. And I find new nuggets of wisdom in this story every year. I do so by asking the following question. What lesson does Avram learn from this experience? And as such, what can I, living here in this moment in 2025, what can I learn from this story? And so here it is. When the angel instructs Abraham to put down the knife, Abraham learns that this God of love would never ask Abraham to choose between a relationship with his God and a relationship with his son. In other words, he can be bound to both at the same time. And in caring for his son, he is fulfilling his chiyuv, his obligation to his God. In our Torah reading yesterday, I believe that Abraham fails his test. When Sarah is disturbed by Ishmael's behavior around her son Isaac, she implores Abraham to banish his other son. Reluctantly, Abraham heeds her instructions. He casts off his son, and God needs to intervene by sending an angel to save Ishmael before he dies of thirst. Before he dies of thirst. Abraham's failure was that he believed that he had to choose between his two sons. Now, while I don't really love the concept of slippery slope, this is a case of slippery slope. The man who can send away one child to die, even if not the chosen one, comes awfully close to slaughtering his beloved Isaac. Avram needs to learn the lesson the hard way, that as my friend and fellow rabbinic student Becca Sender Israel often says, empathy is not a finite resource. We don't have to choose, and we can expand who we feel an obligation to love and care for. We began our service today with Dot reading a Mishnah that reminds us that every single human being is valuable, equal, and unique. For many of us, the concept of arevut, the unique connection and responsibility that we have to our fellow Jews, comes very easily and is well ingrained. In particular, post-October 7th, we have flexed this muscle over and over again, feeling the suffering of Israelis as our own and taking to heart each anti-Semitic act around the world. And we should. This has been one of the secrets of our survival. And at the same time, as we mark day 718 since October 7th, I believe that we need to expand whose pain concerns us for our sake and of the love for Israel. I want to talk to you for a minute about Adi Ronen Argov. Adi is an Israeli mother, grandmother, and psychologist who focuses on trauma. She also has a project called Forcibly Involved, which is a Hebrew euphemism for innocent civilians who die. And it's used in the media to describe innocent Palestinians. She posts on her website the names and the photos of Palestinian children killed in Gaza. She does this painful work to help Israelis humanize the innocent civilians who are dying. This is her activism, her prayer for a future Israel that is peaceful. Friends, as hard as it is, we need to look at these photos. We need to look at these faces. We need to see their pain. This is not betrayal. This is not weakness. This is how, as the descendants of Abraham, we fulfill our mission of doing la'asot tzedakah u'mishpat, of bringing kindness and compassion and justice and righteousness into the world. In just a moment, we will read Min HaMetzal Karatiyah before we blow the shofar. From a narrow place, we call out to you. Friends, we cannot allow the aperture of whose pain we are willing to take note of to be narrowed. I had the honor of speaking last week at JIAS's 10-year celebration of sponsoring refugees. And I said there that we need to widen our circle of care. We need to sponsor more refugees. I'm going to say to you today, we need to care more for homeless people in our city. And we have to acknowledge the pain and the suffering of innocent Palestinians. We can't allow the walls of who we feel a chiyuv, a responsibility towards, to narrow. This is how we bind ourselves to our God with righteousness and justice and kindness and compassion. In the book of Devarim, in the final book of the Torah that we're about to end on Simchat Torah, God instructs us over and over, Umaltem et orlat levavchem, and you shall sacrifice the foreskin on our hearts. We need to soften our hearts in this moment. I pray that the sound of the shofar cracks our hearts wide open and expands our circle of care. And as I said yesterday, I pray that the next time that our brothers and sisters in Israel hear a siren, it is the call of the shofar 1 year from today. Please rise as you are able to.